Hello family, my name is Chris, I am your home gamer dad, and I welcome you back to the world of Transformers the deck building game, where this is a follow-up to a video that I put out originally where I talked about how to combine all of the expansions and the other core sets and everything into one box, and then of course how to create the main deck from all of that. I'm basically doing this as an update because a third core box was released, geez, and then of course another expansion. It's not out now, but it's on the way, but I want to let you know what I'm doing in order to prepare for it, to make sure everything fits into the box, to make sure that whenever I play the games, they're as similar as possible, because the instructions that came with the new core box, War on Cybertron, it talked about a lot about, it's a war game. It's really made to be a war game where team versus team is very big. But within the rule set itself, they changed a lot of the solo cooperative play, which is what I mostly do, from the main game. I'll explain all that in a moment, but I just want to show you what my box looks like right now in terms of how it's all kind of put in there. And oddly enough, there's still room. I don't have Clash for, Clash of the Combiners yet. I would advise watching that original one just to see where I put everything and how it all came together. And then here is something that I can show you, like what I'm doing with the newer stuff. First and foremost, the big thing that you have to remember is that all of your technology cards and all of your maneuver cards, you're only going to need one of each. Every one of them comes doubled up in their core sets. So if you want to combine them all into one box and you want to use them for every one of your games, by taking 4 from each one of the numbers and putting them into your main deck, as I explained in the last thing, you're going to have to take them out. So this is what I have right now, including War of Cybertron. That's how big thick the stack is. It's not that I can't use these, just that it would make the deck too big and it just wouldn't really work out very well. But at least if any one of the cards in here ever get torn or ripped or whatever, I got some replacements, so that's good. Next thing I want to show off, which is kind of hard to see because of all the reflecting lights and everything, I apologize, are the standees. I have taken all of the standees off of their bases, and now they are just flat characters. And honestly, even when I'm playing by myself or whatever, or just like playing the game, I'd rather them just be flat on the ground and moving around that way. I get it. Putting them on the standees, making them move around or whatever, it feels like you have a meeple moving around the game board. Awesome concept and things along that ways. But honestly, I don't really need them anymore, especially when I'm getting a lot more of these large ones in when Clash of the Combiner comes for both sets. And here is the bag of all of the standees and whatever, and that's a pretty thick bag. You know, that would take up a chunk right up top there. And if they were on the standees, then it just takes up more room. So I removed them all. I'm saving this in like my little box of components. You never know what you're going to need. Everything else from War on Cybertron is in here. All of the new cards are in here. All of the punched out stuff for your your energy, your minus movement, your ongoing, your start again, your energon, your victory points, and then the things for the polities, you know, the determine who has control over it. All that is in here. Still plenty of room to go. And then the instruction manuals will fit on top. But now I want to go on over to the camera over here, and I want to talk a little bit more about the instruction manuals and just weird differences between them. So a lot of you are familiar with this one right here. This is, I'm just going to call this Core 1 or the Core book or whatever. Like, this is one where you play as the Autobots going up against the Decepticons. And then you have a Darkness Rising right here, which is where you play against the Decepticons going against the Autobots. You know, you have your team versus team, and some of your, I think, Infiltration Protocol brought that into play. But basically the way that these two instruction manuals, whenever you read them, they give you solo and co-op play that has stuff like you don't use the relics, and VP is exchanged for a 1-to-1 ratio for Energon. So you're pretty much just changing the word VP to Energon. That's what these books tell you. But then you get War on Cybertron right here, which comes in, and it changes it up immensely. And in my unboxing video, I pointed it out and everything, and I took screenshots, and I have stuff like that that talk about that there's no score keeping anymore in War for Cybertron or War on Cybertron. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fan of some of the things that they did with the solo co-op play, but I kind of get what they did, because a lot of the stuff for War on Cybertron is meant to be a 1v1 or 2v2 style of gameplay. But that doesn't mean these three can't combine together. That doesn't mean these three cannot work cohesively, and that also Renegade didn't think about that as well, because there's a lot of cards that come from War on Cybertron that do have keywords to them that would only apply here if you have this expansion, but would also work even if you have the other ones. We're going to go through each one of the sets just so you can see. starting with technology and maneuvers. You're going to take all your technologies and all your maneuvers, you're going to separate out the duplicates, and then from what you have left over, you can add that into your bags of maneuver and technology cards, and you want to put them in numerical order. You want to make sure that all the 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s are together, because once you make your main deck, you're going to need 16 cards from technology and 16 cards from maneuver, which would be 4 from each one of those numbers. That functions exactly the same. It's nice, it's easy, it's clean, it goes in. But again, there are a few differences in terms of keywords. This one right here has the word command on it. Commands are used in order to take over polities, which is a new type of site that you'll find within War on Cybertron. I'm sorry, my camera is absolutely terrible. But regardless of anything, it says confront or command. So that means that even if it's in a game that you don't have polities on, you can still use the confront ability to do whatever it is you need to do. And then of course, regardless, your power, your range, and your movement are always going to be useful regardless. So First Strike right here has the command over it. If you're not playing with policies, it doesn't matter. But, you know, you can still use it for 2 power, 1 range, and 1 movement, which is always great. I also love this card and how the gun is going over the word maneuver. That's really cool. A lot of cards have the word attack on them as well, but you also find these in other expansions. This particular one for the Displacer Rifle lets you choose one, and then it's either target character within range destroys 1 card from their choice in the discard pile or gains 1 damage. This is great because if you're playing 2-player, then you'll be able to help your partner by getting rid of some of their stuff. They can call out their deck. And of course, this is also made mostly to go and fight other, other enemies or whatever. But again, no matter what, you're still getting 2 range and 2 power from it. So you still will always be able to use this. And if you're doing co-op, you'll still be able to use the assist ability. And then over here, armored planing. This is again only if you're going to be using ruins. Ignore all damage and ambush effects on ruins this turn, but you can also block an attack, then discard this card. So even if you're not playing ruins, this card can still be used as a block, which is absolutely amazing. You can use a Energon if it's down on the ground to pay it for its power to block again, and you don't even have to worry about this. So this is like some of the examples of the cards that you're going to find within War on Cybertron that will work no matter what style of game you're playing, and if you're combining it with all of your other sets. Same thing goes for your Autobot and your Decepticon robots. You're going to want to put these, there are only going to be 1 of these anyway, so you don't have to worry about taking out any duplicates or whatever, but you're going to want to put them in numerical order from 2 to 5 with the other robots that you have from your other decks. And then once you make the main deck, it's going to be the exact same way. You're going to go through each one of the numbers, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and take 3 robots out of each of them. You can either choose it by hand, or you can do it randomly depending on whatever it is that you're playing. And just to go through some of my stacks really quickly, just as I did before, bosses for your Autobots work exactly the same. You're going to take all the bosses from War on Cybertron and, you know, put them into your bag with all of your other level 1, level 2, and level 3 bosses. That's fine. You're going to do the same thing for your Decepticon bosses, level 1, level 2, level 3. You're going to put them in. And then, of course, once you make your deck and you put down the matrix for the first time, you're going to separate it into the 4 piles. And then pile 1's going to get a level 1, pile 2 is going to level 2, and pile 3 is going to get a level 3. Handpick, auto, or handpick, or random, whatever one you want to choose. But those coming in from War of Cybertron, exactly the same. Allies are exactly the same as well. You just put them in there, and I think it's 6 or so. 6 in your main deck whenever you're making that, unless you're playing Infiltration Protocol. Same thing for the bosses, by the way, unless you're playing Infiltration Protocol. Regular sites, anything with just the word site on it, you want to be able to, that's still getting kind of shiny, whatever. With just the word site on it, those you can just put into the bags by themselves. You'll need 7 of those whenever you make the main deck. So that works. And then I'm going to talk about relics. Relics are going to get a little bit more detailed talk on this because of the ruling with relics that came through. Some people say that you can use them in solo and co-op. Some people still say no. I see no in the book, but at the same time, I don't directly see a no, but I'm going to talk about these in a little bit. But at least for those, the bosses for both Decepticons and Autobots, sites, and allies, take everything from War on Cybertron, put them into your bags, put it into your box, no problem, great, wonderful, all that works out just well. Next, I want to talk about these different sets of cards here. You have Autobot Initiatives, you have Decepticon Schemes, cooperative schemes, and then encounter cards that you now have 3 different flavors in, depending on if you have a War on Cybertron. This came with the core box 1, this came with a Rising Darkness, and these came with War on Cybertron. So in War on Cybertron, there are no Autobot initiatives and there are no Decepticon schemes. These do not exist within that game. These are going to be stuff that you would still use for a solo or cooperative game, depending on what it is that you play. If you're playing as Autobots, you're going to want the Decepticon schemes. If you're playing as Decepticons, you're going to want the Autobot initiatives. That's going to stay the same for your main deck, with the exception of Infiltration Protocol, which again, I've just been playing it as I found out. If you are playing a cooperative mode, there were other cooperative schemes that came with other versions, but War on Cybertron gave a lot more of these for your game. All right, so this is one of the new ones for War on Cybertron. As you can see, it mentions the Polities, which is the new type of site, which I'm going to talk about. Start a turn, and then in order to thwart. There's a lot more cooperative schemes that came within War on Cybertron. I think they're leaning towards that more. So this way, if you have cooperative games or whatever, there's just more stuff to do on the board, more stuff to see, and to make it more of a strategic style of gameplay, because you're not just going in there and just buy. Oh, there's an enemy, kill it. Buy. There's an enemy, just kill it. There's other things that are going to be triggering on the board as you play that you're going to have to be very careful of and like really strategize with your teammate in order to get rid of them and make sure that you guys keep ahead of your opponents. In any event, the other things are these encounter cards. And originally, based on what I saw, the encounter cards here I always gave to the Autobots. The encounter cards I gave here for the Decepticons, strictly because of who was on top. But I mean, if you look up here, let me just kind of move these to the side or whatever. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't matter. I believe Alita 1 and Slipstream or whatever is on this. And so it's like, who would this go to? Well, according to War on Cybertron, it doesn't matter. This could actually go to anybody. The abilities on their back for the ambushes and for the boss confrontations pretty much work universally no matter what. Like, even if I just have these flipped over to you right now, if I shuffled them up, if you didn't read them beforehand, just laid them out, you would have no idea whose deck this originally belonged to. And I think that's an interesting thing where it's like, you could just use all of one set of cards, or if you were playing a custom game, you could actually mix and match them. Why not? Why not take like a bunch of this one, a bunch of this one, and a bunch of this one, shuffle it all together into one self-made deck, and then just pull from there, because the ambushes and the boss confrontations really don't change that much when it comes to each one of these decks. So just for those of you that got War on Cybertron and you have like either of these sets or whatever, these can be used interchange with any one of the other ambush, or I should say encounter cards that you got, or they can be mix and match in between the two of them. Or at least that's the way I look at it. That's the way I can pretty much determine how that would work. And just so you know, I am keeping all 3 still individually in their own bag. So you have the Autobots one, or the one that I deem Autobots, the Decepticon one, which is right here with Megatron, and then the generic one that anyone can use in their own bag. Cooperative schemes go in that one, Autobot initiatives with the Autobots, Decepticon schemes with the Decepticons. I'm just keeping them all in their own individual bags because, again, as more stuff gets released for this game, I want to make sure that I have preset locations for them, and then at least I know where they are and whatnot. That is, unless Renegade wants to release a box for this game. That would be wonderful. You're releasing it for Power Rangers. This and G.I. Joe need one. Just saying. Moving on to your basic cards now. War on Cybertron actually gives a 3rd basic card added to the set. So Rollout basically gave you a convert and then empowered up your assist ability. Rise Up from Rising Darkness gave you flight and the ability to convert. And now Reinforcements, which is from War on Cybertron, gives you a block ability you can convert, and then you can do a command or an assist to increase power. So very, very strong new basic card here. And I believe what the rulebook says is it only wants you to use one of these at any given time. I don't like to do that, honestly. I like to try to have my options going for as much as I can. So I think what I'm going to do personally, and again, you guys let me know what you think down below. There's 16 of each one of these cards. The idea behind these type of cards for all the types of deck builders is that it's a limited resource. You know, you can put them to your deck and everything, but you can't have like them infinitely in your deck. And you probably wouldn't want to anyway, just because they're great, but they're not the best. So what I want to do, and what I've been doing for my games, is I take 8 of the reinforcements, and then 8 either rollouts or 8 rise ups, depending on who I'm playing as. If I'm playing as the Autobots, I'll take 8 of these. If I'm playing as the Decepticons, I'll take 8 of these. So this way I have 16 cards in order to be able to choose from, which is great. Or instead of just a single card in order to pick from the 16 stacks. So again, all in their own individual bags. Each one of the basic cards will get its own spot. I'm sure if there's even a 4th core set that comes out for this, there'll be another basic card. I actually kind of hope there are no more core sets for Transformers the Deck Builders. Just give me like expansions, you know, like Clash of the Combiners or something along that ways. Or maybe something big like a giant, you're doing the flag for G.I. Joe. Give me the Ark, you know, a big ship or something like that for Transformers next. That would be awesome. Fine, rather than another core box just to add even more of these in that I probably won't know what to do with. But we're working our way through it. And as always, if you guys have any suggestions or whatever, leave them down in the comment section below. Moving on to the next set of basic cards, which are your damage cards. These are the cards that will lead up to you ultimately losing the game if you ever have 3 of these controlled at one time. If you have any of the base games, you should be familiar with these. This is your one that you got from Rising Darkness. This is the one you get from the core set. And then you would also get these 3 from various things. And this one is from Rising Darkness. This one is from Dawn of the Dinobots, and then this one is from Infiltration Protocol. These kind of just introduce new types of damage that would get shuffled into your deck, and then as you draw them, they would then just start becoming, they would be like problems that have short-circuiting, stasis lock, decog jam, problems that you would have to overcome, and then it would go back into your deck. And if you happen to have too much damage and then reveal these at any time, you would lose. But now we have a much bigger stack of these 2 damages from War on Cybertron. And Blast Wounds and Energy Leak. Blast Wounds, I believe it works the same as when your game put into play. Yeah, so this works the same as these basic damage cards, and Energy Leak works the same as these. So this one would go into your discard pile, and you would have to draw it, and then it would do something. This one would be attached to your character permanently until you find a way to get rid of it. And these are pretty big stacks. I think there's like 16 the 2 of these together. In the rulebook, it says that if you wanted to, you could shuffle in 5 of each of these cards into this to form one big deck. You don't need to take anything out of here in order to be able to use these at all, which would make the damage pile bigger, yes, but then you have these 3 also floating around in it. That is for those that have seen the new damage type in War on Cybertron. It basically says do not use any of these basic damages again. So you can use these in conjunction with any of the other 3 damage style cards you get from these particular expansions. But these 2 damage cards you're not going to use again unless you just want to use them. In that case, you use these over these. So the way I see it is I've actually shuffled these 2 damage together. I know that's a large deck and you can go through without worrying about damage cards. I've never had that happen, so I don't really know if that's even possible. So I don't worry about it. So I'll either have a normal game where I just pull damage, which are what these are, or I'll have a harder game where I'll use these all together. So it would be these 2 stacks right here shuffled together, and then 5 of each of these shuffled together, which is definitely a lot more to keep track of because of all the different abilities. These, they just slap onto your character, simple and, you know, ready to go from there. So basic damage, that's just regular damage, the one with Optimus and Megatron I have in one bag, and then all the other specialty damage cards I have in the other. Again, because if I'm ever going to use, either I'm going to use this packet or I'm going to use this packet. This is all I'll be doing whenever I play a game, depending on the level of challenge that I want to do. So that's your damage cards. That's how they play into it. The next thing I want to show you guys is a very interesting thing, the starter cards. All right, so here we have our various rows of starter cards that come with the base games. We have the starter cards from the core set: Patrol, Fix, Firepower, Reserve, and Courage. Now remember, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these and 6 of these into your deck. Hunt, Fix, Firepower, Reserves, and Wrath from the Rising Darkness. And then War on Cybertron gives you Scout, Patch, Artillery, Resupply, and Bold. The way that a lot of these worked out is that these are basically made for Autobots. These are basically made for Decepticons, as you can probably tell. These are more of generic. These are very, like, anybody can use these at all. What do you use? Do you use these or do you use these? And you would think, is there really a difference? For the most part, Hunt, for example, would be the same as Scout, where you're able to flip an adjacent card, but Scout gives you Flight, so it is inherently, in my opinion, better. Fix and Patch both have ways of getting rid of starter cards. This one will actually do it from your discard pile. This one will not, because it's just whatever you control, which is in front of you. And then, of course, you can discard a damage card. And then this one can also, let's see, controlled by target player in your space. I think they do the same thing. Firepower, no matter which one it is, they actually all do the same thing, which is 2 damage, 2 power, 1 range. But Artillery also gives you a Confront ability, which enables that to power up by 1. So you can use this in order to fight bosses for a more efficient way. The biggest one are the reserves going to resupply. Both reserves read, if you control 3 or fewer Energon, gain 1 Energon. So that means if you have 4, this card inherently does nothing. Resupply, if you have no Energon, gain 2 Energon, otherwise gain 1. It will always gain you 1 Energon. And to me, this is like, again, it depends on what type of game you want to play, but this makes the game so much better because you're constantly going to be able to give yourself a feed of Energon so long as resupply comes in, which is fantastic. And then, of course, you have these cards, which are like your main buying cards in the beginning because there's 6 of each. They each have their own thing on the bottom. Courage, Confront, play the top card of your deck, which is awesome. Wrath, plus 1 power for every 2 Wrath you control, also really good. This one does not have a Confront ability. Bold is you pay 1 less power the next time you buy a card in your space. Now then, you have all of these cards. What are you going to do to it? You're just going to take, the rows and just go with that? You could. Or Dan Blanchett, one of the designers for the game, actually confirmed that, yeah, you would take your 4 powers over here, but then with these cards, you can actually divide them up. You can have 3 Bold into your deck and 3 Wrath, or 3 Bold and 3 Courage. So the way I like to do is I tried that 3 and 3. It didn't really work well with Wrath because it's plus 1 power for every 2. So I did 2 Bold and 4 Wrath, which was still worked out just as well. I did that. I did resupply instead of reserves. I think I did firepower just because I like it better in terms of thematic with the Decepticons. The Confront power is kind of like a whatever. Ideally, this row is your better row to use, but you can use all this and add in bolds, or you can mix and match them as you choose. But again, just like with the basic cards or any of the other things, just try to keep it within the factions that you're playing as. So if you're playing as the Autobots, just worry about swapping these cards with these cards. If you're playing Decepticons, these cards for these cards. And again, they're 1-for-1s as well. You're not going to have a Hunt and a Scout in your deck. You're only going to have either a Hunt or a Scout, either a Fix or a Patch, etc., etc., etc. And again, before I even bother with it, every one of these, of course, are in their own bag. All the Autobots are in one, all the Decepticons are in the other, and then this generic one are in their own bag. I do have a few things already separated out for a game that I've been playing and that I can't wait to show you guys. Next, I'm going to go over the runes really quickly, only because in the original rule set, it said that solo cooperative mode did not use ruins, which is fine because VP was not used. And now that the new rules came out and basically said that VP is worth nothing, they're like, yeah, throw back in the runes anyway. You do what you do with them. Some of them are really good. They have some great effects to them, especially the new ones from War on Cybertron, which are the 2 of them here. I mean, that's a 5 power. That's insane that you'd be able to get that. But I'm actually putting together, and I'm going to talk about that at the very, very end of the video, a variant that I'm putting together that brings VP back into solo co-op mode. And I've played it a few times and it's worked out fantastic so far, which means that ruins not only have the ability to give you the powers that they have, but I can actually gain the VP in a solo and co-op mode and be able to use it as a separate resource later. And all runes give you 3 VP at this point. Going forward, I would say that when you can use ruins if you want to in your solo game. You would use 3 from each one of the numbers. So 3 7s and 3 8s shuffled into your deck. Just keep in mind, they're very expensive. As you can see, they do some great things, but they may take a while in order to grab. And if you're playing with the War on Cybertron rule of VP doesn't grant you any Energon, then they don't do anything. And actually, even if you're playing with that, because they're not giving you anything until the end of the game, they don't do it anyway. So there were 3 new card types that were introduced in War on Cybertron that, to me, if I'm playing solo mode or co-op mode or whatever, they feel very modular. Like you don't have to use them in your game. They're there as an option, but adding them into your game really does change it around. It gives it a whole new strategy. It gives it a whole new thing in order to figure out, like, as you're moving around the matrix, stuff is appearing that you didn't expect, and you'll be able to take control of certain things and whatnot, and be able to get all these awesome beginning effects and whatnot. It just adds another layer to the gameplay and really dives you into Transformer lore, history, things along that ways. Polities are sites by nature. You'll have 3 different levels of these, level 1, level 2, and level 3, multiple ones for each level. And at the beginning of your game, in the first 3 stacks, you're going to be shuffling in, I believe, 2 of these, 1 of these, and 1 of these. I got to double check the rule book on that and everything. But basically, when one of these is revealed in in the Matrix, then you have to go and try to fight for it. And that's what these little tokens are for. Basically, you would put this on top of one of these polity sites and say whoever has control over it. So in this case, the Autobots would have control over Voss, which means ongoing, if this polity is under your faction's command, so that would be the Autobots, pay 1 less power to buy or defeat an adjacent card to this card. So as you can see, it grants you a boost depending on whatever one it is. Now, in order to overtake it, say I was playing as the Autobots and Decepticon had it, I would have to come into here and I would pay 5 power, take command of this polity, and pay 1 more power for each polity under your adversary's command. So if they had another one, that I'd have to pay 6. And as soon as I pay it and meet that criteria, I would flip this over and then it is mine. It's like a King of the Hill thing, which is really awesome. Whenever you're playing solo mode or cooperative mode, because regardless of anything, you know, you're always going to be on one side or the other. The second one of these is shown off, you're going to be putting down a marker automatically that reveals your opposite faction. So if I was playing as Decepticons, if Praxis popped up, I would put a Decepticon thing. Voss would be a Decepticon. Kaon would be an Decepticon. And so I'd have to go to these and then actually pay it in order to be able to use the abilities. Next are the Ruin cards. What these do is that when you defeat an adversary in the Matrix, you immediately replace it with one of these ruins. Not your choice. This is all going to be shuffled together into one big deck. You're just going to take the top card and throw it in there. And then that's going to be on reveal. That's going to be an immediate reveal of a card. So you're not pulling a card from the your stack that you had. So you may lose great cards that way, keep in mind. So long as these are taking up space in your matrix. And then also, if you have too many of these in your matrix, then you automatically lose the game. I got to double check on that exactly how many it is that you need. I'm sure some of you may let me know down there. But each one of them, while you're on the space, you pay the certain amount of power in order to clear the ruin off the board and discard it completely. You destroy the ruin, which is, you know, perfectly fine, doesn't come back. And what's great about ruins is, because of the new Energon rules and everything, where VP doesn't count for Energon or whatever, if you clear a ruin, with the exception of Taka Warzone, because you can't, they'll all give you Energon when you do it. So it's actually almost in your best interest to find a way to get rid of these things, because their ongoing effects are really terrible. And then they also gain you Energon back. That is absolutely amazing how each one of them says that. So this is something that I can't wait to try out. I think I'm going to do this in my Dinobot run through because it just makes more sense to me. But I do want to play with that a little bit more. Lastly are the mission cards, brand new to War on Cybertron, and just kind of giving you another thing to do on your turn in order to be able to earn extra victory points and things like that for the end of the game. There are cards that will do team versus team, co-op, and solo. That's what these 3 are. Ones that are just team versus team and co-op, and ones that are just team versus team. And basically what this is everybody is dealt 2 of them at the beginning of the round, and they sit in front of you, and as you complete them, you're going to go ahead and vault them, which you do with all, like, you know, some of your other stuff to gain victory points, and then you're just going to draw another one. So you'll always have 2 in front of you until you've gotten yourself down to the bottom of the stack. And once the stack is gone, it's gone. You do have the option at the end of the game or at the end of a round in order to discard one of your missions in order to draw a new one. But once a mission is in your possession, you have to complete it if there's no more cards left in the mission deck. And for solo mode, if you have missions in front of you, you're always going to have 3, actually. 3 missions are going to be in front of you at any given time in solo mode. Then your level 3 boss will gain 1 extra health of sorts for every mission that you have. So it's a good idea to get rid of these, not only to gain the VP or whatever, based off of my homebrew rule, because again, according to the main game, that doesn't really mean anything, but it also weakens the level 3 boss as well. So that's what these missions are. Ruins, polities are in one bag, and then I have all the missions in another. I have a feeling that as more expansions come out, there will be more polities and more ruins to go into this pile in order to gain a little bit more variety to the game. At least that's what I would hope for. Again, I don't really want another giant core box to this game. I'd rather just have more expansions in order to just build on what's already there, clarify some of the rules that are out there, and then of course give us an amazing, amazing experience with our Transformers fighting to either defend the world or enslave it. Last thing I do want to talk about is how I've been adding back in victory points as part of my solo and co-op play. And basically what I've made them is another resource that the player can use in order to look back at the victories that you've had on your game and be able to convert that into something that you may need. War on Cybertron said that there is no scorekeeping, so VP meant nothing, but I don't like that. I want it to mean something, especially if I'm using the relics, especially if I'm doing these missions or whatever. Anything in the game that says earn VP, you're able just to take it immediately, put it next to your card, right with your Energon, and that's like a spendable resource, just like Energon. If something says end of game, like relics will give you 3 VP at the end of the game, the moment you vault it, you get that 3 VP, and that is it. You're able then to hold on to it, keep it for you for the end of the game, and give yourself a personal score, see how much VP you have at the end, or you can go ahead and spend it for one of the things on this list. All of these numbers are subjected to change, but as you can see right here, there's a bunch of different things that you're able to do. I do a 2-to-1 Energon exchange this time, just because I feel like that's a little bit fairer. 1-to-1 is like, it's almost a no-brainer. You're always going to do it, but now it's like you have to really consider if you need that Energon, that 1 Energon for that 2 VP, that it took you so long to get that 2 VP. And so far, I've done this twice already. I'm going to do it a third time before I actually record this, and I think it's going to be really well. So far, it's been working out very, very good. I had to drop down some of the VP prices because you didn't earn VP as fast as I thought you did in some of these games, especially if you're doing either two-handed. Solo, maybe a little bit better, but it's just a little bit of a drop makes it just that much better and that easier to go. I also didn't want anything to completely break the game. None of these effects that you saw on that list are anything that's like, oh, I win now. I just need that much VP and I win the game. No, it's just, if you have that much VP, you can do an awesome thing, but then maybe a lot of those little things that you could have used, you won't have access to. So again, it's just another strategy. It's another thing. You don't even have to spend the VP. You can just continue to collect it in solo or co-op mode and give yourself a high score. It's up to you. It's up to your game. Totally how you want to play. And that is how I'm continuing to combine all of the Transformers deck building game expansions and core boxes or whatever into one solid set here. And then every time I play a game, where things are coming from and how I'm going to be creating my main deck from what cards and how it is that I will be playing the game every time. As you can see, there's a ton of different ways to play this game. Each one of the core rule books, depending which one you have, will say something a little bit different, but the game itself is largely the same. I do have the how to play on that. That's always going to be the same thing. You can also watch any one of my playthroughs for Transformers deck building game in order to get a better idea about it. Thank you all so much for checking this video out. I hope it helped you try to organize your set, get an idea of where all the cards should go and what the cards should do. If even War on Cybertron is something for you, it may or may not be. If you have it or do not have it already, all the links for all the Transformer stuff you can find down in the description below. You can always go head over to Renegade's website, see their site and everything, and take a look at the boxes, a lot of the previews like that. You get all kinds of cool information from there. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Home Gamer Dad so you don't miss any future Transformers actions. Again, next one is going to be Infiltration Protocol. It's going to be on the Decepticon side, and I'll be using 2 Decepticons. I'll be just playing that game double-handed. That's going to be fun. If you wish to support the channel further, a super thanks is always appreciated, or you can head on over to patreon.com/homegamerdad. Check out the tiers there, be able to get early access to videos, full-length videos whenever I do anything that's multiple parts, exclusive posts and everything that I have over there. You know, that's going to be growing a lot more over the years, so definitely head on over and check that out. Consider joining the growing Patreon family for Home Gamer Dad. But no matter what, your view, your likes, your comments, your shares are always greatly appreciated. You guys are absolutely amazing. Every single one of you out there, I am enjoying meeting you, talking to you, having these interactions for all of these awesome games. You guys are amazing. Take care of yourselves and each other. We are family forever, gaming together. Let's put the lid on this one as I try to figure out what it is I'm going to do next, because after Transformers the Deck Builder, it's going to be some Joe deck building action, I'm telling you right now. So until then, you guys have a good one. And I'll see you in the next one.